Welcome back to the Barrels Hall Podcast. We are back with another episode of Let's Talk About It, and we are continuing our series on going over a deep dive into every single NBA team before this upcoming season. This episode, we are going to be focusing on the Houston Rockets, a team that has really changed the narrative around them the past year. As soon as Ime Udoka got to town, everything seemed to change for this Houston Rockets team. I feel like the Houston Rockets 2 years ago were a team where, I guess, looked at as a little bit of a joke, unserious, had no real direction and no real structure, kind of what we've seen from the Hornets the past couple of seasons. But I feel like even the Hornets now, with their new head coach and kind of their whole new structure, they're going to be trending into a position like the Houston Rockets are now. So looking at this Houston Rockets team, Ime Udoka has been a complete game changer for this team. This team missed out on the play-in last year. They were the 10 seed. They were 41-41. They have everything in the world. The only real offseason move that they have done is add Reed Sheppard in the draft, which from Summer League alone, Reed Sheppard's looking like he's the best player in this draft. He looked like a complete veteran out there during Summer League. He looked like he was just on a whole different level and played at a whole different pace compared to everybody else that was at Summer League. He seemed like everything is polished in his game, especially offensively, which is something that I think can give this Houston Rockets team a jolt. And it's kind of wicked to think about, like, me looking at Reed Sheppard. It's like, man, Reed Sheppard, it's tough you kind of have Fred VanVleet. Not saying that Reed Sheppard at this current point in time is better than Fred VanVleet, but it's like, man, Fred VanVleet's making a lot of money over the next 2 years. Obviously, it's only 2 years. It's not like 4 or 5. But, man, it's like Reed Sheppard, I would like to see him in a world where he is starting. Looking at this, I feel like he's going to be able to still be able to have lineups where he's playing next to a Fred VanVleet. I know a small backcourt, but I feel like the spacing alone that those two can provide you can work wonders for this Rockets team. So looking at what I think the potential starting five for this Houston Rockets team is going to be, I think Fred VanVleet is still at the 1. I think you go Jalen Green at the 2. I think Dillon Brooks is still your 3. I think Jabari Smith is your 4 and Sengun is your 5. But looking at the depth on this team, this might be the deepest team in the league going into next season. The only other teams that I can think about with this level of depth is like the Golden State Warriors, who they have really added some real nice pieces to that bench. And this Houston Rockets team has a ton of young talent off this bench. Like, you got to think of guys like Cam Whitmore. I didn't even mention Asar Thompson. You have Reed Sheppard off the bench now. You have Steven Adams off the bench now. He was hurt last year. I feel like, is a perfect complementary piece and a different style of big that Ime likes, coming off the bench and going in for a Sengun. So looking at and he still got Tari Eason. So looking at all these guys that the Houston Rockets have, a move season seems inevitable, right? A move and a pivot and a trade to go get the guy is inevitable. Who that guy is, it could be on the roster already. If you want to say Sengun is that guy, if you still are a big Jalen Green guy. But looking at this, I think it's definitely in the realm to where this Houston Rockets team could be very active at the deadline going into next season. Because they have so much young talent, and it's going to be hard to play a lot of those guys. They were very heavily involved in the Mikal Bridges sweepstakes. They didn't get him. They actually ended up getting Phoenix's draft picks to go make a move and pivot to try to get a Devin Booker. It was mainly Kevin Durant, but I heard some whispers about Devin Booker as well. That's something that could be revisited depending on what kind of season the Phoenix Suns have and what kind of their outlook is looking at at the deadline. But I think the Suns are going to be looking pretty solid, and I don't think they're ever going to really pivot. I think they're going to go down with the ship with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. And Devin Booker is somebody that I just don't see leaving Phoenix, even if an insane trade happened. But looking at this team, I think they have a world of potential. It's just how they make these pieces work. I think this is a team that is going to be well within the playoff mix and well kind of in that play-in mix for sure this year. I feel like they kind of got going a little late, and I feel like they were kind of playing from behind, and that's why they weren't able to catch the Golden State Warriors, who were the 10 seed in the play-in. But looking at this, the expectations I have is for them to really be in that playoff mix throughout the year. I know this is still a very young team, but I think they're primed to make another jump, and I think that jump is definitely going to be helped by their X Factor, and I think their X Factor has to be Reed Sheppard. I think he is somebody that you could almost start on day one if you didn't have Fred VanVleet. I would be comfortable if Reed Sheppard was in the starting lineup just because of the spacing and the playmaking ability he does have. This Reed Sheppard pick is going to make Jalen Green look a lot more tradable, in my opinion. With everything they have in Asar Thompson, Cam Whitmore, and Reed Sheppard off your bench, Jalen Green's spot is, I think, in real jeopardy because he's up for an extension. I'm not questioning the talent and the potential of Jalen Green because I think he still has the highest potential of anybody on this team. It's the timing of everything because he is due for an extension and you're seeing everybody in his draft class get the extension. Is Jalen Green worth that money in the Houston Rockets' eyes when they have this plethora of young talent still on the team? I think that's a huge question that the Houston Rockets have to address, and it's going to be a big season for that. And this is the season that's going to answer a lot of questions and criticism about Jalen Green, which rightfully so. He had the back half stretch of the year where he was just lights out. He was reaching the fullest. So this is what we've been waiting to see from Jalen Green. But at the start of the year, it really wasn't good. It was kind of the same inconsistent shooting. It was the kind of inconsistent defensive playing under Ime Udoka. Still, I feel like maybe another year of that is going to be able to really unlock that part of Jalen Green's game. So looking at this from this perspective, the main question I have for the Houston Rockets going into this upcoming season is what's the next step for Jalen Green in terms of his development and also from a team outlook? Because when I'm looking at this Houston Rockets team, like I kind of just said, if they're at the deadline and so becomes available, Jalen Green's is probably in that package. Because if my mindset, if the Houston Rockets are getting a guy, then the team that they're trading with is probably going into a rebuild, and they wouldn't mind paying Jalen Green, who has still a world of potential to unlock, a bag. So looking at this, I think it's going to be, that's the main question. I think Jalen Green is a pivotal point in this team going forward. Me personally, what I would do with Jalen Green in this situation, I'm not giving him the extension. I'm looking for a trade partner at the deadline, even if it's not to go get the guy. Maybe is to get another supporting piece because you have so much young talent that's hard to play, especially depending on the development of a Reed Sheppard. I would not give Jalen Green the extension. I think that can kind of handcuff you into some difficult situations and difficult choices moving forward, unless Jalen Green comes out and is just absolutely balling. And he ends up being your guy because I think he still has the highest potential out of anybody on this Houston Rockets team. So looking at that, it's a big year for the Houston Rockets in terms of how they view and the viewpoint of development of Jalen Green because he is going to answer a lot of questions about the Rockets this season. If he comes out and he's hungry for that extension that he's seeing all of his other draft mates get, and he's coming out here balling, putting the ball in the basket, giving me about 22 to 24 a game, playing off of Sengun and playing defense at a high level, which I know he has the potential to, then it's like, oh, the Rockets have found their guy, and they got a great number 2 in Sengun. They got all the connecting pieces like a Fred VanVleet, a Dylan Brooks, a Jabari Smith Jr., a Reed Sheppard off the bench. They got defenders off the bench. Like, then you're really talking if Jalen Green can turn into the guy. And this is the year where he is kind of pressured into doing so because if he doesn't kind of turn into that guy, I see a world where Jalen Green is just not on the team. And they trade him for the guy, if you know what I'm saying. So it's a very interesting conversation. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of like Jalen Green's development and what you would do if you were the Rockets. Me personally, I just don't think I'm giving him the extendo because it's just a tough situation. I haven't really seen enough, and I already have guys off my bench that I could plug in that spot, and Jalen Green has enough value still to kind of swap and move around to go get even better pieces for the future for the Rockets. So it's going to be very interesting. Like I said, the expectations, I think they're going to be definitely in the play-in mix for sure. But it's going to be interesting. They have a lot of young talent that I'm excited to see develop. It's a big job on Ime Udoka to find ways to get all of these guys minutes because I think they have a lot of fun lineups that match up really well, especially defensively, the lineups that they have in a Dylan Brooks, a Jabari Smith Jr., and an Asar Thompson. I feel like those three wings can give a lot of teams in the Western Conference a lot of fits, and Sengun being more of like an offensive hub, kind of in the middle of like a Domantas Sabonis and like a Nikola Jokic in a way. I think the sky's the limit for this Rockets team, but I think it all rolls back to the main question I have is what's the next step for Jalen Green in terms from an organization standpoint and a player development standpoint. So looking at that, that is all I have for the Houston Rockets in this episode of Let's Talk About It. Thank you guys for tuning into the Barrel Talk podcast. Hope you tune in to future episodes.